All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right, I'm not going to do this in presentation mode just because it does make all the screens go haywire and crazy. So, oh, and I just lost everything. Let's see, lost everybody. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Okay. All right. So, today we're here to talk about, I called this emergency funding meeting after looking at everyone's expenditures for the year, and the remaining funds that we have left to be spent, and discussing those funds with Dr. Killingsworth, and we decided that we needed to call an emergency meeting to discuss this with you guys. And so to start off with, while I go over what we're going to be doing for today's agenda, if you will please scan the QR code on the screen and complete the form. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. That is going to be your way of signing in to this meeting. I know a lot of you are going ahead and putting your information into the chat, but we realized that we do not have phone numbers for a lot of you, and want to make sure that the information that we have is up to date. And so we just decided that we would do this Google form. And that would be your way of signing in into today's meeting, and also would enable us to have you update any of your contact information so that we will make sure that we have contact information for everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what we're going to discuss today. But while I'm doing that, please go ahead and scan this QR code and fill out the form. Okay. I am recording this, and this recording will be sent out. So if you're on your phone and can't scan the QR code right now, you can do it when you go ahead and put your name into the chat, your information in the chat, which a lot of you are putting it or making comments now, but go ahead and put that in there. And then when I send out the recording, you can do the contact form at that time. So today we're going to be talking about the current status of 21st century funding statewide. We're going to talk about FY24 FER closeout, incomplete FY25 continuation applications. We're going to talk about the status of ES2s, the importance of spending these funds, the consequences of not spending them. And then we're going to talk about some ways that you could potentially spend these funds out if you don't already have a plan to do so. We're going to talk about a resource sharing forum and meeting that we're going to have, and then next steps. All right. So I'm just going to give you another few seconds to finish completing that contact form, and then I'll move forward. Okay, I will put this up again at the end of the meeting for those who are just now, for those who log in late. So we will come back to that at the end if you have not had a chance to complete it now. So let's talk about the current status of 21st century statewide funding, because just to be frank, I was a little appalled when I saw where we stood. I spent an entire day, a couple of days, going through everyone's expenditures, going through every site and creating a spreadsheet and trying to figure out exactly how much money we still had to spend before September 30th. So here's where my concerns come in. We have approximately $14 million in FY24 funds that have to be spent or returned to the feds by September the 30th. Okay. On top of that, we have around $16 million of unspent FY25 funds. Okay. From carryover and this year's allocations, approximately $24 million is currently allocated to cohort 16 and 17 subgrantees. And as of May 31st, only 6.7 million of that 24 million had been spent, which means that we have $17.2 million that needs to be spent by September 30th, 2024. And that seems pretty scary to me, considering it took the entire school year for you to spend 6.7 million, and now you have just a few months to spend 17.2 million. If I do the math correctly, and we are able to move some money, some of our expenditures from FY25 over into try to spend out some of that carryover money from FY24, we can do that with a little bit of it. But we still have to have $10 million spent by you guys before September 30th, or we're going to be sending money back to the feds. I was hoping that the supplementary grant would help with this, but it didn't help very much. Thank you to those who did apply for it. You guys had some great plans, and everybody who applied actually got it. Everybody did what they were supposed to do and had great plans. But we ended up only giving out an additional 1.69 million, something like that. It wasn't very much, or wasn't as much as I was hoping that it would be. I understand that a lot of you had carryover, and that's why you didn't apply. I understand that it was a very short time crunch, and it's hard to think about spending that kind of money by September 30th. I wish that we could have gotten it out earlier. If we do supplementary grants in the future, hopefully we will be able to do it much earlier in the year. But we're still in that situation where we've got $10 million that needs to be spent by the sites by September 30th, or we're going to send money back to the feds. We'll talk about the consequences of that in a little bit. But let's talk about some more issues or problems that I found when going through the site's expenditures. Let's talk about FY24 closeout. We still have 4 subgrantees that have not closed out their FY24 funds, and therefore they haven't gotten their carryover funds rolled over into FY25 yet. Your ALSDE specialists are going to be reaching out to you in the next few business days, to discuss. For those of you who this applies to, I didn't want to say names as to who these subgrantees are, but please make sure that that if you have not completed the FER process for FY24, that you get that done immediately. This is something that I think has been allowed to not necessarily be done in the past. I know when I came into this position, Elise, if you could mute everybody, that'd be great. When I first came into this position, there were some closeouts that hadn't even been done, that still had not been done from a year or two before. So I don't know why this was allowed to go a long time without being done in the past, but we cannot continue to do that because it puts us in a situation where carryover doesn't come over.
I need to be quiet.
Please, everybody, make sure you're muted, and that you stay muted. It puts us in a situation where you have money being carried over year after year after year, and that's how we get into a situation like this. Now, I do understand that ESSER contributed to this. I understand that many of you spent out your ESSER funds and let 21st Century carry over because you were allowed to do that. And I understand that's how we got some of your sites that have a huge amount of carryover. I get that. But we can't continue to allow that to happen in the future. We've got to figure out a way to spend out these funds because we do not want to send any money back to the federal government. So if you have not closed FER from 24, please make sure that you do that immediately. For those sites who have to do that FER process, please, there is a portion of the form that you fill out in EGAP that asks you if you want your carryover funds. If you do not want those carryover funds, please select no. So that way we can use those, we may be able to allocate those funds to another school or system who might be able to spend them or might be able to use them. If you feel like you have a good plan to get those carryover funds spent out by September 30th, by all means, go ahead and say that you want it, but please make sure that you do have a plan for spending that money out. We cannot continue to allow carryover from year to year. Okay, and allow it to build up, excuse me, from year to year. Okay, so we also have 6 subgrantees that still do not have an approved continuation application. Guys, this is absolutely unacceptable. We talked about this my very first meeting, that we had to make sure that we get things in on time. And I understand that some of you could not get your applications in because you were so far behind on your ES2s from previous years, and it's taken you some time to get caught up on your ES2s from last year. Again, we cannot continue to allow this to happen. We cannot continue to allow ES2s to not be done when they're supposed to be done. We can't continue to allow funding to not be spent when it's supposed to be spent. At last I looked, it appeared that all ES2s had been done. When I pulled this list, it appeared that the ES2s had been done for the required amount of time. So there's no reason that these 6 sites should not have a application in at this point. Now, a couple of them just got it done. I think a couple of them are working on submitting their application right now. But there was 4 that should have been able to submit their application months ago. So please make sure that you have submitted and you have an approved application in process, or that you have it submitted and that it has been approved. If you do not have an approved application, you must get that done as soon as possible. If you continue to let it go without being approved, that's when we're going to start considering not giving you your reimbursements. That is a possibility. We don't want to do that, but we cannot continue. I mean, it's the end of the year. The school year is over, and you still don't have an accepted application. So you could have been spending money this entire time on things that are unallowed, or they're not allowed, and won't be reimbursed for those things. And you've put yourself in that situation if you allow this to continue. So we've got to make sure that those get done as quickly as possible. And please understand that next year and future years forward, we're going to have a cutoff date that if you don't have an application in by a certain date, you are going to lose your funding for that year. We're doing it with all other federal programs, and we're going to be doing it with 21st Century as well. We will let you know when that date is as soon as we know for sure when it's going to be, but it's probably going to be in November or December, sometime around that time. So please make sure that you are doing things when you're supposed to be doing them. All right, next is ES2s. Out of the 48 subgrantees, only 6 have spent more than half of their allocated funds for FY25. Only 6. That means 42 of you still have more money to spend than what you've spent the entire school year. Now, I get that some of you may plan to be submitting a gigantic ES2 for May or June that's going to cover a lot of these expenses. And if that's the case, I really do hope that's the case, and I hope that that's exactly what's going to happen. But we can't just sit around and wait and hope that those funds are going to be expended in time. We have to make sure that you understand that it has to be done immediately. It has to be done as soon as possible. So please get in your ES2s. 24 of you have submitted your ES2s through April or May. So kudos to you, even though some of those amounts were smaller amounts and you still have quite a bit of money left to spend. Maybe you're planning on spending it during summer. I'm not sure. I hope that's the case. But please make sure you have a plan to spend out all of your funds. 14 of you have only submitted 14 of you have either submitted just like one ES2 or no ES2s for the entire year. Some of that is because you don't have an approved application yet. You can't submit ES2s until you have an approved application. That means that those funds have not been spent. Not a single dime of those people's funds have been spent. Here at the end of the school year, partway into the summer, it's just unacceptable. And then we've got about 10 or so who have submitted 2 to 4 months of ES2s before April. So you were doing good for a while, you were getting your ES2s, but for some reason you've kind of fallen away and have not been submitting them for the last couple of months. Please get those in as soon as possible. It's very, very important. So I mentioned this in the email that went out that Erica sends out to you guys, but let's just talk about this again. Why do we want to spend these funds out? Why do we not want to just continue to allow them to carry over from year to year? Well, first of all, it says in all the federal guidelines that the funds are intended to be used in the year in which they are allocated. So we don't even have to allow carryover to occur at all. And for future cohorts, I'm very, very much considering not allowing carryover, period. But they are supposed to be used the year in which they were allocated for the students that they were allocated for. Also, the feds have very much encouraged us to cut program funding when there's an abundance of carryover from year to year. You can't spend your money each year, then why do we continue to give it to you? We could be giving that money to another subgrantee who could be using those funds for another program. We could be, giving more students access to this program across the state if we didn't have funds being tied up by sites who aren't using them. So please understand that that is an option that we have been encouraged to do. We have been encouraged to cut your funding in the next year if you have carryover. So that very well may happen for next year if you continue to have these large amounts of carryover. As I said in the email, returning these funds to the feds sends a message that we don't need 21st century funds in Alabama. Also, having large amounts of unspent funds in our accounts. They send me, I think it's quarterly updates of our finances, and our representatives, our 21st century representatives at the federal level are practically begging that we get these funds spent down, because as you know, in our current administration, if they're cutting programs that aren't needed or aren't used, and if the money is not being spent, then that gives the message that these funds aren't needed by our schools. And so you're risking either our funds in Alabama being cut, which is going to make it where we can serve less students, or even having the entire program, the entire federal program cut by the administration, because they're seeing such large amounts of money not being spent. So it's really, really important that we have that we get this situation solved and get this problem fixed by spending these funds and not sending back any money. Okay, so let's talk about your consequences. Consequences for not having these things done. So first of all, if you still have an FY24 FVR that hasn't been completed, you still don't have an approved continuation application, and no ES2 submitted, or they're submitted severely late, that's going to affect your risk level, and it could affect your eligibility to apply for future grants. We are keeping records of sites that are in non-compliance, and all of these are issues of non-compliance. And so you can ask, some sites this year were not eligible to apply for the cohort 26 grant because of a past history of non-compliance. So this would be a check against your record that could potentially make it where you're not eligible to apply for future funding. So please make sure that you get this fixed as quickly as possible. Consequences for not spending down your funds as soon as possible. Dr. Killingsworth has told me that if we don't see expenses rolling in and those remaining balances dwindling or drastically decreasing by the end of July, then we're going to start considering cutting funding. And that would be this year's funding. Okay, so we want to see that you're submitting ES2s for May, June, July, that you're getting those expenses in, that you're spending down those funds. We're not saying you have to have all of your funds spent down by July 31st, but we want to see that a good chunk of your funds is coming down. We want to see that you're putting forth as much of an effort as possible to get those ES2s in, to get those expenditures down, and to spend out that money. If we don't see that effort being put forth, then that's when we're going to, we're going to reevaluate in July. Of course, we want to offer as much support to you between now and July 31st as we can. If you need help with any of these processes, please reach out to your ALSDE specialist, or you can also reach out to accounting if you're unsure of how to do certain things. Surely all of you know how to submit ES2s by now, but if not, we can provide you with some technical assistance on that. But we're going to help you as much as we can, and we're going to stay on top of you and make sure these things are going to get done. But when we get to July 31st, we're going to look at and see where your balances are and see if you've been putting forth that effort to getting those funds spent down. And if not, if we don't see that any effort has been put forth, that might be when we have to pull some of your funding so that we can give it to maybe one of the other sites who could get the money spent down. So please I don't want us to be in that situation. I would much prefer that you just get your expenses in and get the money, the balances down as quickly as possible so that we can, so that I can breathe easier. I can have a little bit of relief that we're not going to spend, that hopefully we're going to spend enough money that we're not having to revert any funds to the feds. And then finally, your consequences for not spending all of your FY25 funds before September 30th is that for cohort 16, again, this may affect your eligibility to apply for future grants. It would be a check against you for applying for future grants. So some of you got cohort 16, got the cohort 26 grant. Some of you did not, and you probably plan to apply for the cohort 27 grant or the next grant, whenever that may be. Probably the plan is for 27, but you don't want to become ineligible for that because of non-compliance. And then for cohort 17, your year 3 funds may be reduced by the amount that's carried over, especially if it's a large amount. If it's just if it's $50,000 or less, you'll probably be fine. We'll probably allow that to just be carried over. But if you still have $300,000, $600,000 to spend and you haven't done that, there's a very good chance that we will cut your funding for next year and just allow you to work off of your carryover funds for next year. Instead of allowing that carryover just to continue to build from year to year to year, which has been evidently allowed in the past. Okay. So it's not all gloom and doom. We want to give you some ideas of ways to spend out these funds. We want to help you come up with ideas. And so these are just a few ideas that I threw together based off of other people's applications, other things that have been approved, the ways that people are spending their funds. I am not, except for the mega conference and AETC, I'm not pushing any of these products or speakers or anything on you or conferences on you or recommending them from an ALSDE standpoint. I'm just listing some ideas of things that you could use to spend your funds on that I've pulled from your fellow subgrantees applications, things that we have approved. So of course you could provide some professional development for your admins and your staff. There's AETC conference that's coming up. That would be a fantastic conference for you to go to because they have a ton of technology, fantastic technology that you could spend these funds on. So I highly recommend that you go to that if you have the ability to do so. Mega Conference, as you know, is also another good, fantastic resource. It is required for cohort 26 to go to the Mega Conference, but we are also encouraging cohort 17 to go to it as well. And there will be lots of resources and vendors there that could share their products with you that you might find some great ideas there as well. I know After School Alliance is doing some trainings that you could spend funding on. There's out-of-state conferences that you could send some of your staff to. You could bring in trainers from various companies that would be considered like a professional service. You could contract with various companies to come in and work directly with your teachers and your staff to help them with their after-school programming, with their lesson plans and things like that. Another idea would be that you could bring in speakers or presenters for the students and their families. I know Steve Trash is a very popular one that a lot of people bring in, but then you could also consider some national speakers. You have money to spend, and there may be some really fantastic national speakers out there that you could bring in to speak with your students that typically would be, probably not considered because it would be pretty expensive. But since we need to get these funds spent, as long as they are talking to your kids about something that they need and that is going to be beneficial to them, something they can learn from, something that applies to their life, that will benefit them, then that's fine. Bring in some national speakers, spend money that way. You can increase salaries for your staff or hire additional staff. I know they don't have much time, but you could do that for your summer staff and for your first couple of months of next year if you are able to do that. And then there's other contracted services I put specialists, but what I meant by this is you could bring in specialists from your community to teach your kids skills, to work with them, master gardener coming in and helping the kids create a community garden. You've got, of course, educational experts that you could contract with and bring in to help with academic learning and things like that. But then you could also bring in a tennis pro to teach kids tennis. You could bring in a golf pro to teach kids how to play golf. I mean, just the opportunities out there are there's tons of opportunities out there where you could spend these funds by bringing in experts in your community to work with the kids and pay them to do that. Just make sure that these people are an expert. They do have some kind of credentials or experience that makes them eligible to work with to teach whatever topic that is to the students. And of course, you want to make sure they've done their background checks. Here are some resources, some purchases that might really make an impact in your program. Again, I'm not recommending these products. These are just been approved in other subgrantees applications. Some of them I have prices for. Whether these prices are exact or not, I'm not sure. It could be that there was 2 systems or 1. I'm not sure. We just kind of pulled this really quickly. But you've got the interactive floor system. I think it's called Active Floor, interactive floor system. That's around $14,000. The Lou interactive system, they have a mobile version that you could get. It's somewhere, and I've seen $37,500 in one application. I saw 40 something thousand in another application. It could be that they were buying 2 of them. I'm not sure, but that's a good chunk of change. There's the drone soccer for $22,000 that was in a person's application. FX Game 150 interactive for $22,000. VR goggles that comes with curriculum for $18,000. Kitchen a la carte is a really cool program that provides everything needed to teach kids how to cook. I think it comes with like a from what I read in one of the applications, it comes with, hot and cold water. It has a stove. It has all the things that kids need to cook something. The School of Beats DJ program, I want to say it was around 40,000, but I think that was to buy like an entire classroom set of the DJ equipment and the teacher DJ equipment. Say It Music, their price varies depending on how many groups that they're going to be creating music videos with and helping them write their own songs. They also have like where they come in and talk with the kids. They have that as an option. And then Z-Tag, I'm not sure the price on that one, but that was another option that we've seen.
Amanda,
Yes.
There's a question as you're going over the different ways to spend funds. Is it okay to ask a
Okay.
question now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jennifer Simmons asked, can we get something like that if we did not receive the 26 grant or cohort 26 grant and have carryover?
Okay, so here's the thing. Yes, you can go ahead and spend those funds. The only thing I am concerned about would be if you purchase something that would be considered a capitalized equipment, because in that capitalized equipment form, I don't know if you've noticed the one that was sent out recently, it says, do you have a plan of using this equipment for longer than a year? If your school does plan to continue an after school program, whether it's with 21st Century or not, then I don't have a problem with that. Now, Dr. Killingsworth, I think, is in on this call. She might have a different idea, but I know the last time I spoke with her, she was like, no, we need to get these funds spent. Go ahead and let them spend the funds. So if you are continuing an after school program at your school and it's a capitalized equipment, then I think that would be okay, because you could say, in good faith, you could say, yes, there is plans for using this equipment for longer than a year. Um,
Dr.
but
Killingsworth said, yes, get the funds spent.
yes, okay, perfect. I'm sorry, I can't see your, when I'm sharing a screen, I can't see your comments. So thank you so much for chiming in, Alicia. Um, and I'm almost done with this, and I can stop sharing. So, so what the other thing that we have decided to do, just to help you guys out, is we've created a Google form. This is another QR code, but we will also email out to you just a link that you can click on. But this is a Google form for you guys to share with each other resources that you have found. Um, and it's just a way for you to share any kind of equipment that you've purchased. It's got a place for you to tell us what the equipment is, how much it costs, other companies that sell a similar product that you could get a quote from. If you have to get, the three quotes, if it's expensive enough that you have to get your three quotes, then they don't have to put it, but they can go ahead and put, okay, well, also got quotes from this company and this company to justify my purchase of this equipment. So this is a form that we've created for you to share resources with each other. We will kind of monitor it just to make sure that everything that's on there would be approved. But other than that, we're going to have like a little disclaimer that says this is not equipment that we, as the ALSD, we're not allowed to necessarily recommend certain purchases or equipment, but we can allow you to share that information with each other. And so that's what we're going to do. Once we have a good number of replies to that, then we will put that up on, it'll probably go on the 21st Century website, where everybody can have access to it. And then we'll just continuously update it as people add to it. And then we're also planning to have a meeting on June 18th from 3 to 5. This will be just an optional meeting. You can come if you want to. You don't have to, but this would be a way we're just going to kind of facilitate the meeting and allow you guys to share ideas of ways to spend your funds, whether it's sharing resources, sharing equipment that you can purchase, sharing speakers that you have found, sharing really good professional development that you've found, whatever that may be. It's just a way for you to help each other out to help get these funds spent. And that will be again at my WebEx link, the one you used today to get into this meeting. It'll be June 18th from 3 to 5. If we have to go past that, that's fine too. But as long as you guys are in the meeting and are sharing great ideas, then we'll keep going until you guys are tired. I usually stay here really late at night anyway. So, all right, so let's talk next steps, and then I'll go and look at your questions. So next steps, your ALSDE specialist is going to be contacting you in the next day or two. Well, today's Thursday, so it'll probably be either tomorrow or early next week, to discuss your financial status for your particular site. They may have to email you first if they don't have your phone number. So please make sure you respond to those emails. Make sure that we are able to get in touch with you, because we just want to hear, do you have a plan for spending out these funds? Is it just that you've kind of let them collect and you're just going to send in one giant ES2 in June. If that's the plan, then that's great, but we need to know that's what your plan is. So they're going to call you and speak with you personally and talk to you about, they're going to talk to you about whether you're one of the sites that needs to get your FER from 24 done, whether you need to get your continuation application completed. They're going to talk to you about getting those ES2s in and tell you where you stand, at least in our system, and then find out from you what your plans are for spending these funds. You guys may have every intention of spending out every penny of these funds, but if you don't and you're just planning to let them carry over, please understand that that very well may not happen. It may not be that you can just continue to carry things over from year to year. It may be that you're going to have some of those funds cut from you so they can be given to a site that would spend the funds. So again, make every effort possible to spend down those funds immediately. And then we will be watching in June and July to see if you are putting forth that effort and you're getting those ES2s in and you're getting those remaining budget amounts down. As long as we see that you're doing that, you'll be fine. But if we see that that effort is not being made, then that's when we will be, at the end of July is when we'll be talking with you about potentially cutting your funds and going forward from there. All right, so I'm gonna put this back up again for a moment for those of you who came into the meeting late or did not get a chance to do it at the beginning of the meeting. This is this QR code that will take you to a Google form for you to put in your contact information. This is the way you're signing into the meeting. This is how we're going to know that you either watched this meeting on the recording or that you were here in person today. And it's also going to give us the opportunity to get your phone number and any updated contact information that you might have. So please make sure that you fill that out. Again, this is going to be sent out by email as well. And we will send that to you probably tomorrow or later today. It may be a part of Erica's weekly email that goes out tomorrow. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see questions.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But Alicia, since you've been watching it, you might be able to find.
Yeah, so one question was, can we increase admin hours for cohort 16?
Increase admin hours. If you have a justification for doing so, then that is a possibility. And also, would that put you over the 30? Well, it's for 16. It's a what? What is the percentage for 16? Remind me. For admin, is it 20 or 25?
It's 20.
20, yeah. If that puts you over the 20% cap, then probably not. But because that's what's in the RFA, I'm not sure that we can change that because it's in the RFA. But if it doesn't put you over that cap, then I don't have a problem with that. Okay. I'm scrolling up and looking at other questions, sorry.
The other few questions that I was seeing was just making sure that they could complete that link that was on the presentation, but I think you said that you're going to make sure that this information is on our Friday email,
yes,
the recording, and then they can do it on that.
Okay. I will do that. Okay, so there's a comment about the fingerprinting background check stopped the museums and art centers from coming in as many times as they wanted. That's something that I'm not willing to bend on. If we want to make sure that anyone who has close contact with the kids has had that fingerprinted background check, and if they're not, if those museums and art centers aren't willing to do that, then I hate that. But that's something that I don't feel we can bend on with having adults that have direct access with kids. They're going to need to have that fingerprint background check done. They should have already done it. And if they're an art center and a museum, you would think that would be a requirement of the art center and the museum to have that done to work with kids. It ought to be. Let's see what else we see.
If we have a cohort 26 grant, can we purchase technology with cohort 16 funds?
Yes, you can. Yes, absolutely. If you know that your grant is going to continue, then yes, you absolutely can use cohort 16 funds to purchase that equipment that's just going to roll over to your cohort 26 grant. So yes, you can do that. Will I resend the link when we get closer to the June 18th date? Yeah, that the link for the meeting on June 18th, it's the link to the meeting is going to be the same as today's link. It's just my personal WebEx account. So, but yes, we'll make sure that that is continuing to be shared in the weekly email that goes out every Friday. Sorry. Is there any way we'd open the supplemental grant back up where we could add more items for funding? Yes, that is a possibility. Let me, I had actually approached Dr. Killingsworth with that question, but at the same time, I also approached her with the spreadsheet that shows that most people hadn't spent their money out. So that was a concern. It was more of we kind of got distracted from giving more money and focusing on getting what you've got spent and then considering giving more money. But yes, that is definitely a possibility of opening that supplemental grant back up if we see that you're spending down funds. So if we can see that you are making a big dent in those funds and you're getting them spent down, then we definitely could consider providing you with some more funding for items that are allowable. I could definitely see that happening.
Natalie, I think you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, I have a quick question. So, I know that we are cohort 17 and we do have what I would consider a substantial amount of rollover this time than we've never had before in
Right.
years past. Normally we do have some salary that doesn't, depending on how many work this day or that day or something come up. But this year I know we have a lot, but ours is because we didn't start our program the first year until January. So we had all those salaries that built up. When you look at, and we have a plan, of course, to try to wipe, I would say the majority of it out this summer, try to get rid of all of it. But my question is, will we be penalized anyway, knowing that the majority of our rollover is from that late start date? You see what I'm saying? Like, would that be taken into consideration the fact that we haven't spent all that because it was so late starting? And then by the time I was told what my rollover was, it was like April. And so I spent all of May coming up with a plan, like where we have karate lessons and we have gymnastics and we have field trips and we're taking charter buses. And I'm trying to get rid of it as quickly as I can.
Right.
But, I've had a month to figure out how to get rid of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
And yeah, we can definitely take things like that into consideration for sure.
Okay.
But again, just try to get it spent down as long as we see that you really truly are making, putting forth an effort to spend it down as much as you can. If you end up having funds that still carry over, we're going to look at that totally different than we're going to look at sites who are doing nothing. They still don't submit anything from May, June, and July. And we start looking at it July 31st, and there still hasn't been any ES2 submitted. And nobody's nobody's given us a good reason as to why they're not spending the funds. Things like that is when we're going to consider cutting funding or not allowing money to carry over. So if you're putting forth that effort and you have a good reason for having the carryover and we can see that you really are putting forth every effort to spend it down, you'll be fine.
Okay. That was my only question. Like, if we have any rollover, it'll be because of salary somewhere where, like, maybe somebody just didn't work because, we made it to a thing where we had some kind of conflict. But I can't see us rolling over very much. We normally don't. It's just with that late start date, that's the reason I know we have so much.
Right. Okay. Support purchases just to get EGAP approved. Okay, so there's a question about why are districts being required to send in quotes to support purchases just to get EGAP approved? Ensuring proper procurement laws and procedures are on the district. So why is that being asked of directors for EGAP approval? So the only thing I know of that's required for EGAP approval would be for you to put your contracts in for us to review those contracts. But you shouldn't have been, other than what's in your narrative being approved, that shouldn't hold back you having your application approved. Now you are supposed to submit documentation for capitalized equipment. And then we have asked you to submit if your purchases does not fall into that micro purchase category, if it falls above that $10,000, to submit a justification for those expenses if you have a single purchase. So let me just go over that really quick. So capitalized equipment would be when one single item costs more than $5,000. That's considered capitalized equipment. That has to be approved at the state level. That's in the federal regulations that type of equipment has to be approved. So that's the reason for that. Before we were asking, you were supposed to get approval for purchases of over 5,000, even if it was multiple items of equipment. We have changed that to 10,000 because that is above the micro purchase threshold. And we just want to make sure that you're getting your 3 quotes, that you're getting your quotes in and things like that, that you're purchasing items that are reasonable and necessary. And that's just kind of our measure to make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing procurement wise at the federal level, but also making sure that your purchase is reasonable, and that you're choosing the equipment that is the most cost effective for what you're trying to accomplish. So that's the reasoning behind that. If that becomes burdensome, then please let me know and we may consider other things, because that technically would not be, I don't believe, a federal requirement for us to check that, but it's just something that we decided to do from 21st Century, just so that we would know that your purchases were reasonable and necessary, and that you were following procurement the way you're supposed to for those larger purchases. But it's not something that we absolutely have to do if it becomes a situation where you're not able to spend the funds because you're waiting on our approval. We don't want that to happen either. So just let us know if that becomes a situation. But as far as having your EGAP application approved, that would be getting in those contracts, those MOUs, and that is just so that we know that that's so that we can see that the people that you're contracting with are have the credentials that they're supposed to have, that you are contracting with companies or LLCs or somebody who has a business or an organization, and not just hiring some random person to teach the kids how to play tennis or something to that effect. So that's our reasoning behind that. I have been thinking about lightening up on that some as well for next year. But I'm just still trying to consider what it is that we do need to check and what it is that we don't. But if that hinders you from spending funds, then please let me know and we can try to be flexible with that as much as possible.
I think Dr. Killingsworth wanted to say
Oh,
something.
yes, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to make a comment, basically just echoing what Amanda said earlier regarding spending of the funds in a timely manner. And I was having computer issues, Amanda, but I heard the majority of what you said. But you didn't say one part that I want to make sure I say, because y'all know I believe in being fully transparent and open and honest. So, when you don't spend your funds, you send the message that either you don't need them or you receive too many. In case you guys haven't been watching the new administration and what their plans are to severely decrease, maybe even cut these programs 100%, meaning 21st Century, among some other programs. So when we look at that, we're trying to state our case why we need such programs for the students and how much they benefit the students. It's hard to say that when we have 14 million here and 16 million here that has not been spent. So if there's anything we can do to help you guys, if there are any barriers in place that's preventing you guys from doing what you need to do to spend these funds in a timely manner, and I'm talking about September 30th now, but actually moving forward, period. If there's anything we can do to help you guys, let us know, and we absolutely will. And then also, just keep in mind, and I think, Amanda, you already addressed the, never mind, I won't go into that. I think you may have addressed it, but just keep in mind, we want to be good stewards of the funds. If there's anybody out there that feels like, well, yes, absolutely, I want to spend these funds, but I don't know what else to do. I don't know what I can spend them on because of whatever's going on in my district. Let us know. We'll help you. The same way when we had a situation with the COVID relief funds, a lot of LEAs didn't spend the ESSER 3 funds in a timely manner. We reached out to them, looked to see what was going on in the district and helped them to spend their funds. We will help you guys do this. Once these funds are gone, they're going to be gone and may not be returning. So the last thing we want right now is what we have in some of our LEAs. $6 million went back, $2 million went back in ESSER funds, and now they're wishing they had it, but they didn't spend it when they had it. So you guys, again, let us know what we can do to help you guys. And we're going to hopefully close out strong September 30th, and hopefully we'll make a big dent in the funds that we have now. If there's anything I can do, feel free to reach out, and for sure, we'll help you guys.
Okay. All right, since we're preparing our EGAP amendment for approval, should this amendment submission include narrative explanation as to why we have rollover? No, I don't think that would be necessary. Unless you just want to let us know why, but I think that needs to be a conversation that you have with your ALSDE specialist when they call you. And they can make a note of that in our files. We're trying to keep better records of times when we've spoken with you or sent you emails and things like that. So I think that would be, I mean, you can put it in EGAP if you would like to. We're not gonna say you can't, but I think that's something you need to share with the ALSDE specialist when you speak with them. And they can make note of that. Okay.
Jennifer Simmons has her hand up.
Okay, Jennifer. Or is it?
She should be able to unmute. Or maybe it was a mistake.
Jennifer Baker has her hand up.
Baker, yeah,
Jennifer Baker. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
It's okay. Hello everyone. I had a question about the capital equipment form, and I know there's been an update on that, and so I haven't looked at it yet. But when the one previous to that, when I completed that, we got board approval, all of those things. I had my CSFO to send me almost an identical version of that same capital equipment form, but it was for her state accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked her if I could just use the form that I had already spent the time, created all those things. And she said, well, you can copy and paste that information over, but our state accountant is requiring this form to be completed also. So I did just want to bring that up, and that maybe we look at what that state accountant form is, because it has all of the information basically that what our 21st century capitalized equipment form approval form has as well. I just thought that might be another way that we can streamline and avoid duplication of process.
That's fine, as long as it's asking the same questions, which I'm sure it probably does, because they're just I think they're federally mandated questions that have to be asked about capitalized equipment. I'm perfectly fine with you uploading your district's form or the state auditor's form or whoever's form that you have, as long as it's just answering those same questions. Same thing with like your contracts, your MOUs. If you want, you can use the templates that are provided to you if you wanted to, but you can also use your LEA's version of a contract or your LEA's MOU template instead of the one we provide to you. As long as it has the things in it that it's supposed to have in it, then that's perfectly fine with us. We just need the information, basically.
So
Thank
for
you.
so for CBOs, Amanda, though, we probably want to stick with that form, though. They may
Oh,
be
yeah.
for LEAs, but not CBOs.
Right, exactly. So CBO,
Okay.
I wouldn't think would have that form necessarily, but yeah,
Mhm.
we know that LEAs should have everything in their forms that they're supposed to. Not saying that they all do. There may be some things that have been inadvertently left out, but they're more likely to than necessarily a CBO just because they work in that all the time. So yeah, CBOs, we would encourage you to use the forms that have been provided to you. But yeah. Okay. There's a question about cohort 26 funding. Will it be available during August and September, or has that been decided? So I just left a meeting about that. I will get to you guys give me another couple of days to process. And we will get in touch with you hopefully sometime next week to explain how that's going to work. We're having to do a little bit of finagling, as I've kind of already mentioned, because at the time that the RFA was written, we had a different state's chief financial officer who had intended to change our fiscal year to start July 1st. And so we went with that, but now we have a new one who is not quite ready to do that yet. And so we're trying to figure out exactly how we can get those funds to you before the new fiscal year. But anyway, we're working out a plan, and I hope to be able to let you know what that plan is by next week. I just don't want to say too much before I know for sure how this is going to work. Okay. As a new site director for Hale County, what is it that I can do to help with this process? I'm only now hearing of all of this. I don't know anything about the grant. Will there be a chance that we will be approved for the grant next year? Okay, so Terry from Hale County, are you cohort, I don't know if you're cohort 16 or 17. If you're 16, then the new grant for 26 has already been released. We've already had the grant competition and those funds have already been awarded. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Erica. So they're 16. So you would not be able to apply for the grant that's already been awarded, but we will do another grant competition it will start sometime in the early fall. It'll probably be called cohort 27. And so you would be able to apply for that. And those funds would be for you to start a program in the 26-27 school year. The ones for the 25-26 school year that grant has already been awarded and is completed. Have the supplemental grant funds been added to EGAP yet? I will have to check on that. I know I sent the supplemental grant amounts to accounting for them to put in, but I don't know. I have not had a chance to check to see if they've actually been put in yet. So I'll have to check that, but you should be able to, if you log in, you should be able to see if those funds have been added, but to be honest with you, I'm not sure if she's had a chance to do it yet or not, but I will definitely check on that. And if she hasn't done it, I will send her a reminder. Okay, any other questions? Anything else? Okay. Well, if you think of anything else, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or your ALSDE specialist. Again, they're going to reach out to you in the next few days. So please make sure you take their call. If you don't hear from them, please send them an email with your phone number where they can reach you. I know some of you may not be having summer programs and may be at home. So they may not have your contact information. So if you could send that to them, that would be great, so that so they're able to reach out to you. When they call you, it's not going to be them being mean in any kind of way. It's just going to be them asking, just reminding you, like letting you know where you stand, what we can see, talking to you about what your plan is for spending out those funds and making sure you do have a plan. If not, they're going to help work with you to get a plan. And we're going to work together to try to get these funds spent out as much as possible. So, sorry. Okay, sorry. I had a text. I was making sure it wasn't important for me to share with you guys, but okay. So I think we're good. If nobody has, oh wait, let's see. Yes, Jennifer, you're welcome to stay on and ask me a question. That's fine. All right. Other than that, thank you all for coming today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know this was a last minute thing, but we wanted to make sure that we address this as quickly as possible so that you will have time to get these funds spent out, hopefully, and we won't be in a situation where the feds think we don't need the money. We definitely don't want them to think that. So I hope that you have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.